for me. That's why I give you everything.
Hey, welcome back to Book It. I am your host, Savlus, and today we are going to be talking about the book that literally got me out of my reading slump about a year ago. Verity. Oh my gosh, it's by Colleen Hoover. It's one of probably her best book I've ever read by her. Yeah, best book I've ever read by her. I will hands down say that. I liked it more than It Ends With Us. I liked it more than Ugly Love, more than Confess, and we all know how much I loved Confess. So I want to talk about Verity today. Okay, I'm so excited. So like I said before, this is not like the typical romance that Colleen Hoover's used to writing. We're used to seeing her in like the fun little roms, like, oh, so cute, whatever. This is more of a thriller romance novel. It's like creepy, but it's kind of cool. I really love this book. So I'm going to go ahead and put this down here. I'll just hold it the whole time. So it was by, obviously, Colleen Hoover. And like I said, it did get me out of a reading slump. I was in I just couldn't find any books I actually genuinely like to read. And then about a year ago, I picked up this book just because someone said, like, oh, if you don't want to read, like, the fluff, like, it has, like, the fun, like, love, but it also has, like, some thriller. And I was like, sounds interesting. Was hooked from literally, like, the first paragraph. And it was amazing. So, if you don't know or you haven't been on the internet in the last, 2 years, it's a story about a girl named Lowen who ends up getting, her big break. So, she's a writer and doesn't have, any special, she doesn't have, her own book series yet, but she's, working towards it. And this guy approaches her and says he really wants her to finish writing these books that his wife was writing. His wife's name is Verity, and she's like, oh, I know who that is. And he's like, well, basically Verity just can't finish the book series and we need someone to come in and ghostwrite for her. So she ends up doing that and moving into his house because it's easier. So she comes in, she goes through his office and everything, and he ends up telling her you can just stay in our guest room, because she was literally there all day every day anyway. It also helped because since she's a aspiring writer and doesn't get paid a lot, her apartment was actually being taken away from her, so it kind of all worked out that she wasn't living at home anymore because she didn't really have a home. It's kind of a secret. Her ability to write was because Verity was in an accident and is actually it kind of comatose. She can't walk, she can't talk, she's not really there. She does eat, and then she kind of just sits there and just stares, which is really sad to think about. So Lowen starts spending a lot of time in the house and getting to know their son along with her husband Jeremy. And then one day when she's going through her papers, because there's a bunch of papers when she was writing this books, she runs into a manuscript. Now the manuscript was only supposed to be for Verity's reading, and then later on she'd publish that herself, but Lowen runs into it and ends up deciding to read just the first chapter. The first chapter got her hooked immediately, and she spends the rest of the time reading it. So the book does go back and forth between the story and then the manuscript that Verity had written. And she learns that there's a lot of dark things in Verity's past. It's an autobiography that was never finished, but she learns that there's just so much that this woman that's in this house, not talking, not anything, has done to people. And it's very, but against her better judgment, she decides to try to read them and piece together exactly what happened in the past. She also, during this time, starts a relationship with Jeremy as well, which is kind of a no-no because his wife is literally alive in the other room. So she starts this relationship with Jeremy, and things start happening around the house, and Lowen starts to question if Verity's actually injured or if she's spying on her, which Jeremy dismisses and is saying honey, she can't, she physically cannot do it. And Verity just doesn't Verity has this feeling that she's always being watched and she's always being followed and she can't do anything without. Now I will talk about the manuscript a little bit. So the manuscript does in fact talk about how her and Verity and Jeremy met, and how they were absolutely obsessed with one another. Like, Verity was so obsessed with this man, it was ridiculous. She ended up getting pregnant and having a set of twins, and then she ended up getting pregnant again and having a son. Now, the issue with this is that when they were babies, like literal babies, Verity thought that they were taking too much time away from Jeremy. Like, Jeremy wasn't spending enough time with her. He was spending more time with the babies than with her when he would come home from work. So she ended up trying to murder one of the children one night when they were crying, because her and Jeremy were going to do the old devil's tango, and one of the babies started crying, and instead of him getting up, she was like, oh, I'll take care of it, and she literally tried to murder her child. Psychopath? Yes. So after Verity tries to murder one of her daughters, it doesn't end up working out, and she ends up favoring the other one, the one that she didn't try to kill. She, like, has, like, this favor and, like, loves this one, but, like, basically, like, fuck the other kid. Like, we don't care about them. We then learn that her favorite daughter ends up passing away because of an allergy that, like, you know, and her sister didn't mean to do it. It was not intentional. It was just kids being kids, and she had an allergy. She just couldn't, you know, she didn't survive. It was very sad. Verity fell into a deep depression. She started to resent the first daughter even more. She resented her and hated her for killing the favorite. She blamed her and said it was on purpose and all this other things, which was terrible. So when Jeremy leaves one day, she takes both the kids out on the boat, and sadly the boat flips, and she loses her other daughter very quickly, and it's very sad. But Jeremy does talk about the boat flipping and how it was an accident, and how Verity was, like, so torn up over it because she just wanted to do something nice for her kids, and it was just very, like, heartbreaking altogether. But we learned from the manuscript that the boat did not accidentally flip. Or she says something along the lines of, basically she told her son, like, hold your breath, and then flipped the boat when her daughter was in the front, and was able to save her son, but just did not go back for her daughter, which is, like, just so messed up on so many levels. So then from there we learn that she continues on just basically trying to get rid of all her kids, and then she's in a terrible car accident and ends up being, you know, how she is. So at the end of the book, after everything is said and done, Lowen gives Jeremy the manuscript and lets him sit down and read it. He doesn't take as long as she did to read it, and he comes back out and he ends up killing Verity. He ends up taking a pillow and smothering her to death. And Lowen just kind of watches because, yeah. And so that's when, like, the book's like, oh, okay, like, cool, we're done. But we're not yet, because we then find a knife and a letter hidden in a floorboard underneath Verity's bed. And the letter basically says how she did love Jeremy and she was obsessed with him and she did think that they were together forever. But the reason she did all these things were because of him, and that he's the one you have to watch out for because he is, like, the actual evil one, and that she, like, regretted having children with him and all this other stuff, basically that he's the bad guy, and she needs to, like, her goal was to take their son and run away when she had, like, when she was able to. Her goal was literally to get away from him without, you know, him stopping her. So we end up getting that in the letter, and Lowen finds it and doesn't like say, like, anything to Jeremy about it, but we do find out that Lowen is actually pregnant, and Jeremy, their son, and then Lowen and her unborn child are actually moving to a new home to be together since Verity died in that one. And because that house was, like, filled with death, like, every child died on that property. And then they drive away. And that's the end of the book. It has an open ending. It's open to interpretation. But here's where the internet kind of took it, like, to a next level. The internet then went on this whole big argument on who was right. Like, who was telling the truth? Was the manuscript telling the truth, or was the letter, telling the truth, because the manuscript was like this very long, complex thing, and it took Lowen days to read it, just days on days, maybe months even. It took her a long time to read it and get through it and to process everything. And it took Jeremy like a whole of like an hour or 2 hours or something like that, and then he was like done. I read pretty fast, but like I don't read that fast, you know? So like that was kind of sketchy. And then also like her manuscript said one thing, but then the letter said the other, and they were both written by her. But there was a theory that like he wrote it and was trying to make Verity look bad, and it was just a whole big thing that people on the internet started getting over, like started arguing. And now there's like stickers you can buy that says like I'm team manuscript or I'm team like letter. Personally, I would love to say I'm like team manuscript because I just think so, but I think I'm team letter. I think that Jeremy is the one that's like little, you know, I think that there's something wrong with him. I do think that Verity was a very messed up woman and basically a psychopath and should not have had children in the first place. But overall, I think that Jeremy was probably the more evil one, which is like so crazy to think about. Like, I don't know. It's just, okay. But yes, so overall, I gave Verity by Colleen Hoover a 5 out of 5. Another 5 book. This is officially our 4th book that has 5 stars. So we're super excited for that. Woohoo, go Verity. And then Smut was a 4 out of 5 because there were actually a lot of like, look how many tabs there are. Oh my gosh, just like the amount of tabs is absolutely ridiculous. There was a lot of different spicy, ticey, wicey scenes in this bitch, which I really liked. Yes. I think that I just don't know. I don't know. This book is very confusing because you want to choose one side but then another side. Like I just said I'm team letter, and then just going through I just saw like, this is the sentence I saw. The first night after you brought me home, I snuck in the office and deleted the manuscript from the laptop, but you had already deleted it. I tried to find the one I had printed, but I couldn't remember where it was. There were so many blank spots in my memory after the wreck, and that was one of them. But I knew I needed to get rid of both of them so you couldn't use it against me. So Jeremy had read the manuscript before. This is like, this book is just, oh my, this is why it's a 5 out of 5. This is why it's a 5 out of 5, because it makes you think. And I could read this book 4 or 5 more times. I've already read this book twice. I could read it 4 or 5 more times and still just be like, what? Because she knew what she did was wrong. She knew certain things were wrong. She knew like telling her son's name was Crew. I don't know why I keep saying her son. She keeps telling Crew to like hold his breath when she was going to flip the boat, and she knew it was wrong. She knew she lost her daughter, but then she ended up grieving both of them later on. Like it's just one of those things where it's like the woman was so messed up, but I think her husband was also messed up, and it just didn't like. Okay, sorry, that's it, end of rant. But yes, and then overall 5 out of 5, Smut 4 out of 5. My favorite quote was, I think the idea of me is better than the reality of me, and that's what Verity says, and I love that. I think it's very deep, it's very cool, it's very like, you know, indie vibe, maybe, I don't know. All right, whatever. But yes, thank you so much for watching. Make sure you like, subscribe, and follow me on all my social media links below. I'm going to go ahead and post this to Goodreads, so the Goodreads will be up before the actual video is up. And then let me know in the comments, are you team manuscript or team letter, and please let me know why. So thank you so much for watching, and until next time, bye.